Communications Officer Yoon Da-hye was drinking her third cup of coffee when the signal came through. She had been working the night shift at the Busan Sentinel monitoring station for 2 years now, and most nights were quiet. Too quiet. Space was big, and most of the time it was also very empty. But tonight was different. The signal was weak, crackling through the speakers like a dying radio. Da-hye frowned and adjusted her headset. At first she thought it might be interference from a passing comet. But then she heard it, patterns in the static. Mathematical sequences that made her heart race. Someone was out there. Someone was calling for help. Da-hye's fingers flew over her keyboard as she began recording the transmission. The signal was coming from the Kepler 442 system, more than 30 light-years away. That was far outside human space, far from any known colonies or trade routes. Computer, run translation protocols, she said, her voice steady despite her excitement. The station's artificial intelligence began working on the signal. Da-hye watched numbers scroll across her screen. The basic mathematical patterns were universal. Prime numbers, simple addition, multiplication. But wrapped around these patterns was something else. A language no human had ever heard before. Da-hye reached for her communication panel. This was too important to handle alone. Busan Sentinel to Admiral Kim Tae-ho. Priority 1 message. The response came quickly. Admiral Kim was known for staying awake late, reading reports and planning operations. Go ahead, Da-hye. What do you have? Sir, I'm receiving a distress signal from an unknown alien species. The transmission is weak but consistent. They're using universal mathematical sequences to identify themselves as intelligent life. There was silence on the other end. Then Admiral Kim's voice came through, calm but interested.
Send me everything you have.
I'm calling Dr. Choi Mina. Dr. Choi Mina arrived at the Busan Sentinel 3 hours later. She was a small woman with tired eyes, but her mind was sharp. As the fleet's best xenobiologist, she had studied alien life for 20 years. But she had never had the chance to meet a new species. Play it again, she said, settling into a chair next to Da-hye. The signal filled the room. To most people it would sound like noise, but Dr. Choi heard the patterns underneath. The mathematical sequences were simple, but they were embedded in something much more complex, a language that seemed to flow like water. They're trying to tell us something specific, Dr. Choi said after listening for several minutes. These aren't just random distress calls. There's information here, coordinates maybe, or... Wait. She leaned forward, her eyes wide. Computer, isolate the repeating sequences. Look for patterns that match stellar cartography. The computer worked for several minutes. Then numbers appeared on the screen. Coordinates for 17 different star systems. And in each transmission the same word appeared over and over again. What does it mean? Da-hye asked. Dr. Choi was quiet for a long time. When she spoke, her voice was grim. I think it means help, and I think 17 of their worlds are in trouble. Admiral Kim Tae-ho arrived on his flagship, the Incheon's Wrath, 6 hours after receiving Da-hye's first message. The massive ship was humanity's pride. 1 kilometer long, armed with weapons that could crack planets. But Kim rarely thought about the weapons. He was more interested in the ship's ability to protect people. Report, he said as he entered the communications center. Dr. Choi looked up from her work. She had been translating the alien language for hours, and her breakthrough had come just minutes before Kim arrived. They call themselves the Villani, she said. They're a peaceful species, herbivores from what I can tell. Their homeworld and 16 colonies are under attack by something called the Krex Empire. Kim frowned. The name was familiar. The Krex are slavers. We've encountered them before, but they usually stay in their own territory. Not anymore, Dr. Choi said. She activated a holographic display showing the star map. The Villani territory is rich in resources. The Krex want it all, and they want the Villani as slaves. Kim studied the map. The Villani worlds were clustered together, far from Galactic Coalition space. They were alone, with no allies and no military to defend them. What's their defensive capability? Kim asked. Dr. Choi shook her head. None. They don't have armies or warships. They've never needed them. The Villani have been peaceful for thousands of years. Kim was quiet for a moment. Then he activated his communication system. Get me the Coalition Council. The call took an hour to connect. The Galactic Coalition was a bureaucratic organization that moved slowly and carefully. When the alien face finally appeared on Kim's screen, he could see the annoyance in its eyes. Admiral Kim, this is highly irregular. You should have filed a proper first contact report. There's no time for reports, Kim said. A peaceful species is being enslaved and they need help now. The coalition representative made a noise that might have been a sigh. We understand your concern, Admiral, but we must follow proper procedures. We will schedule a committee meeting to discuss potential diplomatic solutions. When? Kim asked. 6 months from now should be sufficient. Kim felt anger building in his chest. 6 months? They'll all be dead or enslaved by then. That is unfortunate, but we must consider all options carefully. The coalition cannot act hastily. Kim ended the call. Around him, his officers waited quietly. They knew that look on their admiral's face. Lieutenant Commander Lee Jun-ho spoke first. Sir, the coalition won't act. But we could. Kim nodded slowly. He had been thinking the same thing. Dr. Choi, how long do the Villani have? Based on their transmissions, the Kreks are taking one world every few days. If the pattern continues, the Villani homeworld will fall within 2 weeks. And how long would it take us to reach them? 47 days at maximum speed. Kim was quiet for a long moment. Around him, his officers waited. They all knew what he was thinking. The coalition had rules about independent military action. Humanity was supposed to ask permission before helping other species. But sometimes, Kim thought, asking permission took too long. Lee, send a message to Fleet Command. Tell them we're activating Protocol 7. Lee's eyes widened. Protocol 7 was total military mobilization, something that hadn't been used since the Centauri War 50 years ago. Sir, that will mean deploying the entire human defense force. The coalition will not approve. Kim stood up. His decision made. Then we won't ask them. As the Inchin's wrath changed course toward human space, the Villani distress signal continued to broadcast. Somewhere, 30 light-years away, people were dying while bureaucrats held meetings. But Admiral Kim Tae-ho had heard their call for help. And he was coming. The message went out across human space at faster than light speed. In military bases hidden throughout the solar system, commanders received the same 3 words. Protocol 7 active. Fleet Admiral Han Kyung-soo was eating breakfast when his personal communication device chimed. He looked at the message and nearly choked on his coffee. Protocol 7 hadn't been used in 50 years. It meant only one thing. Humanity was going to war. All ships, immediate mobilization, he said into his communicator. This is not a drill. Across human space, the response was immediate. Hidden shipyards that had been disguised as asteroid mining operations suddenly came alive with activity. Ships that had been sleeping in dark space powered up their engines. The human defense force was waking up. Captain Park So-jin was on her ship, the Soul's Fury, when the order came through. The massive dreadnought had been patrolling the outer rim, watching for pirates and smugglers. Now it had a different mission. All hands to battle stations, she announced over the ship's communication system. We have a rescue mission. The Soul's Fury was not like other ships in the galaxy. Where alien vessels were smooth and graceful, human ships were angular and aggressive. They looked dangerous because they were dangerous. Every line and curve had been designed for one purpose: to survive in the vacuum of space as easily as humans survived on their deadly homeworld. Captain Shin Won-ho received his orders while his stealth destroyer, the Gwangju Shadow, was hiding near a gas giant. His ship was invisible to most sensors, designed for reconnaissance and surprise attacks. Like all human military vessels, it had been built to fight against impossible odds. Set course for the rally point, he told his navigation officer. Maximum stealth protocol. Within hours, ships began gathering at the secret military base known as Haven Station. The station was hidden inside a nebula, invisible to casual observation. It was here that humanity kept its true military strength. Major Kang Hye-jin was training with her Iron Tigers Marine unit when the alert came through. The elite soldiers stopped their combat exercise immediately. They had been preparing for this moment their entire careers. Listen up, Kang told her troops. We have civilians under attack by slavers. 30 light-years away. Innocent people are dying while they wait for help. The Marines responded with grim determination. These were not ordinary soldiers. They were products of humanity's deadly homeworld, trained to fight in any environment. Where other species saw hopeless odds, the Iron Tigers saw Tuesday. The mobilization did not go unnoticed. Throughout the galaxy, Other species watched in shock as humanity revealed its true military capability. Ships emerged from hiding places that nobody had known existed. Weapons platforms that had been disguised as communication satellites suddenly displayed their true nature. Ambassador Chen Wei-Ming received angry calls from a dozen coalition species within the first day. The Altarians were particularly upset. "Your military mobilization is illegal," the Altarian representative said during the emergency call. "The coalition must approve all large-scale military operations." "We're responding to a distress call," Chen replied calmly. "That's allowed under coalition law." "Not with this many ships. Our sensors show over 200 vessels moving toward your rally point." Chen smiled politely. "I'm sorry, but your sensors must be malfunctioning. We only have 47 registered warships." The Altarian's face changed color, their species equivalent of going pale. 47? We're reading 10 times that number." "Then perhaps," Chen said, "you should update your records." The truth was that humanity had been preparing for this moment since joining the coalition. They had watched other species ignore distress calls because of bureaucracy and politics. They had seen peaceful civilizations destroyed while committees held meetings, so they had built ships in secret. They had trained soldiers in hidden bases. They had created a military force designed for one purpose: to answer calls for help that nobody else would answer. Chief Engineer Bei Jun-sik was working 16-hour shifts to prepare the fleet. Every ship needed maintenance, supplies, and weapons checks. The journey to Villani space would take 47 days, and there would be no resupply stations along the way. "How are we looking?" Admiral Kim asked during his daily inspection. "All ships will be ready within 12 hours, Bei replied. "The dreadnoughts are carrying full ammunition loads, and the supply ships have enough food and water for 3 months. "And the special equipment?" Bei smiled grimly. "The rescue pods are loaded and ready. Medical supplies for 1 million refugees. Temporary shelters, food synthesizers, everything we'll need to help the Villani." Lieutenant Commander Lee Jun-ho was gathering intelligence on their enemy. The Krex Empire was known throughout the galaxy, but detailed information was hard to find. Most species preferred not to think about slavers operating in distant systems. "What do we know about their military?" Admiral Kim asked during the briefing. 400 ships, mostly cruisers and destroyers, Lee replied. "They prefer overwhelming numbers over advanced technology. Their tactics are simple: surround the enemy and attack from all sides." "Crew numbers?" "Approximately 40,000 Krex warriors. They're a proud species convinced of their own superiority. They have never faced serious resistance from their victims." Kim studied the tactical display. 400 ships against 47 seemed like impossible odds. But the numbers didn't tell the whole story. "They've never fought humans before," he said quietly. Dr. Choi Mina continued monitoring the Villani transmissions during the fleet preparation. The signals were getting weaker, and the content was becoming more desperate. "They're down to 14 worlds now," she reported during the final briefing. "The Krex are moving faster than we expected." "What about their home world?" Kim asked, still free but barely. "The Villani government is trying to evacuate civilians to underground shelters, but they don't have much time." Kim looked around the briefing room at his officers. These were good people, trained professionals who understood what they were about to attempt. Flying into unknown space to fight an enemy that outnumbered them 10 to 1, all to save a species they had never met. "Questions?" he asked. Captain Park So-jin spoke first. "Sir, the Krex will probably demand our surrender when they see how few ships we have." "And our response?" Park smiled coldly. "We politely decline." The fleet launched from Haven Station exactly 18 hours after receiving the first distress call. 47 ships entered hyperspace, heading for a battle that would change the galaxy forever. As they traveled through the star-touched darkness, the Villani signal continued to broadcast. Dr. Choi had learned enough of their language to understand the basic message now. It was simple, desperate, and heartbreaking. "Please help us. We are dying. Please help us." Admiral Kim stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the stars streak past. Somewhere ahead, innocent people were fighting for their lives. Behind him, the bureaucrats of the coalition were probably still scheduling meetings. 46 days to target, his navigation officer reported. Kim nodded. 46 days to cross space and rescue a civilization. 46 days to show the galaxy what humanity was really capable of. "All ships maintain formation," he ordered. "We're going to save them all." War Commander Thex Novar stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the final Villani city burn. The conquest had been easier than expected. These plant-eating aliens had no concept of warfare, no understanding of military strategy. Their defenses were nothing more than emergency shields designed to protect against natural disasters. Report, Thex ordered his second-in-command. Sub-Commander Drac Voss consulted his datapad. 14 worlds secured, sir. 3 million Villani captured and processed. The sorting facilities are operating at maximum capacity. Thex smiled, showing his sharp teeth. The Kreks were a proud warrior race bred for conquest. They stood nearly 3 meters tall, with thick armor-like skin and claws that could tear through metal. To them, the gentle Villani were nothing more than valuable livestock. What about their homeworld? Thex asked. Our advanced scouts report minimal resistance. The Villani government has moved their population into underground shelters, but they have no weapons. We should be able to complete the invasion within days. Thex nodded approvingly. The Villani territory was rich in rare minerals and perfect for agricultural development. Once the current population was properly enslaved, the Kreks could begin full exploitation of these worlds. Sir, the communications officer called out. Long-range sensors are detecting unknown ships approaching our position. Thex frowned. No one else operated in this region of space. How many ships? 47 vessels, sir. They're still several days away, but they're heading directly for the Villani homeworld. Species identification? The communications officer checked his instruments. Human, sir, Thex laughed. Humans were a minor species from a single world far from Krek's territory. His military database listed them as moderately dangerous for a Deathworld species, but noted their small population and peaceful nature. 47 ships? Thex said. That's barely a patrol force. What could they possibly want here? Drac Voss looked up from his datapad. Perhaps they're merchants, sir. Humans are known for their trading activities. In the middle of a war zone? Thex shook his head. No, they're probably lost. Send a message telling them to leave immediately, or we'll destroy their ships. Meanwhile, light years away, Captain No Sung-woo was getting his first close look at the Krek's invasion. His stealth ship, the Daegu's Eye, had arrived in Villani space 3 days ahead of the main fleet. What he saw made his blood run cold. The Villani worlds had been turned into processing centers. Entire cities had been converted into sorting facilities where captured aliens were categorized for different types of slavery. The peaceful Villani were being treated like animals. Captain, his intelligence officer reported, we're detecting massive civilian casualties. The Kreks aren't just conquering these worlds. They're systematically enslaving the entire population. No watched the tactical display with growing anger. The Villani had never hurt anyone. They were scientists and farmers, artists and teachers. They had built a civilization based on cooperation and learning, and now it was being destroyed by creatures who saw them as property. Any sign of Villani military resistance? None, sir. They literally don't have armies. Their entire defense system consists of civilian emergency services. No opened a secure channel to Admiral Kim. Sir, you need to see this. Dr. Choi Mina was in her laboratory aboard the Incheon's Wrath when the transmission came through. She had been working for weeks to perfect the translation software, and finally, she was ready to make contact with the Villani. The signal was weak and filled with static, but she managed to establish a connection. The face that appeared on her screen was unlike anything she had ever seen. Delicate features, large eyes that seemed to hold ancient wisdom, and skin that had a gentle green tint. Can you understand me? Dr. Choi asked in the Villani language. The alien's eyes widened with surprise and hope. Yes, I can understand you. Are you the humans who answered our call? I am Dr. Choi Mina. I represent the Human Defense Force. We received your distress signal. The alien, a female based on Dr. Choi's research, seemed to struggle with emotion. I am Scientist Prime Yella Tin. I speak for what remains of my people. We're coming to help you. Our fleet will arrive in 3 days. Yella Tin's expression became worried. How many ships do you have? The Krek's fleet is enormous. 47 warships, Dr. Choi replied. Yella Tin was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was sad. I am grateful that you answered our call, Dr. Choi. But 47 ships cannot stand against 400. I apologize for bringing this burden upon your people. Dr. Choi was about to respond when Admiral Kim entered the laboratory. He had been monitoring the conversation from the bridge. Scientist Prime Yelatin, he said, his voice calm and steady. This is Admiral Kim Tae-ho, commander of the Human Defense Force. Yelatin looked at him with those large, ancient eyes. Admiral, please reconsider. The Kreks will destroy your ships. We are grateful for your kindness, but we cannot ask you to die for strangers. Kim stepped closer to the screen. His face was serious but not unkind. Yelatin, you misunderstand something important. You're not strangers. You sent out a call for help and we heard it. That makes you our responsibility. But your numbers don't tell the whole story, Kim said. We're not just any 47 ships. We're human ships, crewed by people from a world that spent millions of years trying to kill us. We've been preparing for this kind of fight our entire lives. Yelatin seemed confused. I don't understand. Kim smiled, and there was something predatory in that expression. You will. The conversation was broadcast throughout the human fleet. In the mess halls and crew quarters, soldiers and officers listened to their admiral's words. They had been trained for this moment, prepared for this mission. They were the children of Earth, the survivors of a world so deadly that it had forged them into living weapons. They had crossed space to answer a call for help from people they had never met. Major Kang Hyejin addressed her Iron Tiger's Marines after the broadcast ended. You heard the Admiral. These plant eaters have never seen war before. They can't imagine what we're capable of. The Marines nodded grimly. They understood their mission. Save the innocent, protect the weak, and show the galaxy what happened when Deathworlders went to war. The Kreks think they're warriors. Kang continued. They're about to learn the difference between warriors and predators. Chief Engineer Bae Jun-sik made final preparations to the fleet's weapon systems. Human ships carried technology that made other species uncomfortable. Weapons designed not just to destroy but to disable and capture, tools for surgical precision rather than overwhelming destruction. All ships report ready, he told Admiral Kim during the final briefing. Kim nodded. In 2 days, they would arrive at the edge of Vellani space. They would face an enemy that outnumbered them nearly 10-1, defending a species that had never known warfare. But Kim wasn't worried about the odds. Humans had evolved on a world where the odds were always against them. They had learned to survive by being smarter, faster, and more ruthless than anything else on their deadly planet. Send a message to all ships, Kim ordered. Tomorrow we show the galaxy why Earth is called a death world. The human fleet continued through space, 47 ships carrying the hopes of an entire species. Behind them, the Galactic Coalition was probably still holding committee meetings about proper procedures. Ahead of them, the Kreks Empire waited with supreme confidence, unaware that they were about to face something no military academy in the galaxy had prepared them for. They were about to fight humanity. The Battle of Vellani Prime began not with the massive fleet engagement that War Commander Thex expected, but with something far more terrifying: silence. The human fleet arrived at the edge of Vellani space exactly 47 days after receiving the distress call. For 3 hours they simply watched. Long-range sensors mapped every Krek ship, every defensive position, every weakness in their formation. Sir, Drakvoss reported to Thex, the human ships are maintaining distance. They haven't responded to our surrender demands. Thex studied the tactical display. 47 small ships facing his armada of 400. The humans were either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Perhaps they're trying to negotiate, Thex said. Send another message. Tell them they have 1 hour to leave or we'll destroy them. But Admiral Kim had no intention of negotiating. On the bridge of the Inchin's Wrath, he watched the Kreks formation with the cold calculation of a predator studying prey. Their ships are clustered around the major population centers, Lieutenant Commander Lee Jun-ho reported. Classic occupation formation. They're using the Vellani civilians as shields. Weapons status? Kim asked. All ships report ready, sir. Precision targeting systems are locked and loaded. Kim nodded. The Kreks had made a critical error. They assumed that humans would fight like other species, with honor following established rules of warfare. They had no idea what was coming. All ships execute Plan Alpha. Show them what Deathworlders can do. The human fleet moved like a single organism. Ships that had been clustered together suddenly scattered in impossible directions, their movements defying every principle of space combat that the Kreks understood. Captain Park Sojin's Dreadnought, the Soul's Fury, emerged from quantum shadow directly above the Kreks flagship. Its massive weapons powered up, but instead of firing for destruction, they targeted specific systems. The Krek ship's weapons went offline. Then their engines. Then their communications. In 30 seconds, the most powerful ship in the Krek's fleet had been reduced to a floating hulk. What? Thex screamed as his command systems died around him. How did they get so close? Throughout the Krek's fleet, similar scenes played out. Human ships appeared from impossible angles, their movements coordinated with surgical precision. They didn't destroy enemy vessels, they dissected them, targeting specific systems to disable rather than kill. Commander Lim Dong-hyun led his fighter squadron, Seoul's vengeance through the Krek's formation like wolves among sheep. Each human pilot operated with independent decision-making that would have been chaos in any other military, but created an unpredictable and devastating assault pattern. Target their slave transport ships, Lim ordered his pilots. Disable engines and weapons, but keep life support intact. We need those civilians alive. The Krek's fighters tried to respond, but they were outmatched. Human pilots had trained in the harsh environment around Earth, where a single mistake meant death. They flew with a combination of skill and aggression that no other species could match. Sub-Admiral Kwon Tae-young coordinated the overall battle from his command ship. He watched as Krek's formations crumbled under the precise human assault. "Sir, enemy fleet is attempting to regroup," his tactical officer reported. "Let them try," Kwon replied. "Show them what happens when prey tries to fight back." The real shock came when the humans began boarding operations. Master Sergeant Ryu Jinwoo led the first assault team onto a Krek's destroyer. The enemy crew was waiting, confident in their physical superiority. They had never fought humans before. Ryu moved through the Krek ship like a force of nature. These were creatures that stood 3 meters tall and could tear through metal with their claws. But they had evolved on a world that was kind to them. They had never faced predators from a planet that had spent millions of years trying to kill everything on it. The human Marines fought with a brutality that made the warrior race question their own courage. These weren't just soldiers. They were apex predators, children of a death world that had forged them into living weapons. "Deck secured," Ryu reported over his communicator. Moving to the slave-holding areas. The boarding teams had a dual mission: disable enemy ships and rescue Villani civilians. As they fought through Krek's vessels, they found scenes that filled them with cold anger. Villani families crammed into cargo holds. Children separated from their parents. Peaceful scientists and farmers treated like livestock. Medical teams to transport 7, Chief Medical Officer Oh Suk-young announced over the fleet communication system. "We have refugees requiring immediate attention." The medical ships had been prepared for this moment. Dr. Oh had designed field hospitals with the efficiency that came from humanity's experience with disaster response. They didn't just fight wars. They saved lives with the same deadly competence. War Commander Thex watched his fleet disintegrate with growing horror. His ships outnumbered the humans 10-1, but it didn't matter. The humans fought like nothing he had ever seen. "Sir, we've lost 60% of our fleet," Drac Voss reported, his voice shaking. "Our remaining ships are requesting permission to surrender." "No," Thex roared. "The Krek's empire does not surrender to inferior species." But even as he spoke, he could see the truth on his tactical display. His inferior enemies had outfought, outmaneuvered, and outthought his entire armada. The battle turned when Captain Shin Won-ho's stealth destroyer, the Gwangju's Shadow, appeared directly next to Thex's flagship. The Kreks had never seen the ship coming, had never even known it was there. Boarding tubes extended from the human ship. Within minutes, human Marines were fighting through the corridors of the Krek's command vessel. Thex drew his ceremonial sword as the humans reached his bridge. He was a warrior of the Krek's empire, proud and strong. He would die fighting rather than surrender to these Deathworld savages. Master Sergeant Ryu entered the bridge with 3 other Marines. He looked at the massive Krek's commander, taking in the raised sword and the defiant stance. "War Commander Thex Novar," Ryu said calmly. "You are under arrest for crimes against sentient beings," Thex laughed. "You think your small weapons can harm a Krek's warrior?" Ryu didn't draw his weapon. Instead, he stepped forward, and Thex suddenly realized he was facing something far more dangerous than any weapon. The fight lasted 15 seconds. When it was over, Thex was on the deck, his sword scattered in pieces. Ryu hadn't even been breathing hard. "Surrender," Ryu said, "and your crews will be treated according to galactic law." Thex looked up at the human soldier. These creatures were smaller than Kreks, weaker in appearance. But there was something in their eyes that spoke of a world where only the strongest survived. I surrender, Thex said quietly. Throughout the Kreks fleet, the word spread quickly. Their invincible commander had been defeated in single combat by a human marine. Ship after ship began broadcasting surrender signals. The Battle of Valani Prime was over. The humans had faced impossible odds and won through superior tactics, technology, and the kind of ruthless efficiency that only came from a species that had clawed its way to the top of a world that wanted them. Dead Dr. Choi Mina established contact with Scientist Prime. Yelatin as the last Krek ship surrendered. The battle is over, Dr. Choi said. Your people are safe. Yelatin looked at her with those large ancient eyes. There were tears running down her face. How? She asked. How did so few defeat so many? Dr. Choi smiled. Because we're human, and humans don't leave people behind. 3 weeks after the Battle of Valani Prime, the galaxy was still trying to understand what had happened. The humans had not only defeated the Kreks Empire, they had done it without destroying a single enemy ship beyond repair. War Commander Thex sat in his cell aboard the human prison ship, staring at the walls. He had expected torture or execution, or at least the kind of harsh treatment the Kreks showed their prisoners. Instead, he had been given comfortable quarters, regular meals, and medical attention for his injuries. I don't understand you, he said when Admiral Kim came to visit him. Kim sat down across from the massive alien. What don't you understand? You could have killed us all. Your weapons, your tactics, we were helpless. But you chose to capture us instead. Why? Kim considered the question carefully. Because killing you wouldn't have saved the Valani. We came here to rescue people, not to commit genocide. Thex shook his head. But we are your enemies. We enslaved innocents. We destroyed their worlds. Yes, you did. And now you're going to help us fix what you broke. The reconstruction of Valani space was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. General Cho Yun-hee arrived with the second wave of human ships carrying not weapons but tools. Construction equipment, medical supplies, food synthesizers, and temporary shelters for millions of refugees. The Kreks prisoners were put to work dismantling their own slave infrastructure. Under human supervision, they began converting processing facilities back into cities, turning weapon factories into schools and hospitals. This is not how wars are supposed to end, Sub-Commander Drac Voss said as he helped rebuild a Valani orphanage that his forces had destroyed. Then maybe, said Captain Park Sojin, who was overseeing the reconstruction, wars have been ending wrong. Scientist Prime Yella Tin walked through the ruins of her homeworld's capital city with Ambassador Song Min-ho. Where there had been devastation 3 weeks ago, new buildings were already rising. Human engineering teams worked alongside Valani scientists and even reformed Kreks laborers. Your people amaze me, Yella Tin said. You fight with such terrible efficiency, but you rebuild with the same dedication. Song smiled. We've had practice. Earth taught us that destruction is easy, but creation takes real strength. The political aftermath was even more shocking than the military victory. When coalition mediator Zelf arrived with a fleet of bureaucrats, he expected to find the usual post-war situation: occupation, reparations, territorial adjustments. Instead, he found something unprecedented. The humans refused to claim any Valani territory, his aide reported. They're not demanding reparations from the Kreks. They're not even keeping prisoners beyond the war criminals. Zelf studied the reports with growing confusion. Then what do they want? They want to establish something they call the Valani Doctrine, the principle that no species has the right to enslave another, regardless of relative strength. The doctrine sent shockwaves through galactic civilization. For thousands of years, strong species had dominated weak ones. It was considered natural law. The humans were suggesting something radical, that strength should be used to protect, not exploit. This is impossible, the Altarian representative said during the emergency coalition session. You cannot simply declare that the strong must protect the weak. It goes against nature. Ambassador Chen Wei-ming stood before the assembled aliens with calm confidence. Does it? On Earth, the strongest predators often protect their young, their families, their communities. Strength without compassion is not evolution, it's extinction. The real test came when other distress calls began arriving. The news of humanity's intervention had spread, and species throughout the galaxy began calling for help. A mining colony under attack by pirates. A research station threatened by raiders. A peaceful world facing invasion by aggressive neighbors. Admiral Kim received the reports aboard his flagship as the human fleet prepared to leave Volani space. Each call for help represented another impossible mission, another fight against overwhelming odds. "Sir," Lieutenant Commander Lee Junho said, "we're receiving distress signals from 12 different systems. They're all asking for human intervention." Kim looked at the star map, considering their options. The coalition would never approve multiple military interventions. The bureaucrats would demand meetings, committees, proper procedures that would take months. "Admiral," Dr. Choi Mina said, entering the bridge, "I have a message from Earth." The transmission was from Fleet Admiral Han Kyung-soo. His face was serious but determined. "Admiral Kim, congratulations on the successful completion of your mission. The defense of the Volani has been noted throughout human space." Kim waited for the inevitable order to return home, to follow proper coalition procedures for future operations. Instead, Han smiled. "More distress calls are coming in. How quickly can the fleet be ready for the next mission?" Kim felt a surge of pride in his species. They had crossed the galaxy to answer a call for help from strangers. Now they were being asked to do it again. "Sir," he replied, "we're always ready. That's what Deathworlders do." The establishment of the Human-Volani Alliance was formalized in a ceremony on the rebuilt Volani homeworld. Citizen Speaker Nala Weir, elected to represent her people, stood beside Admiral Kim as they signed the historic agreement. "The Volani offer knowledge and wisdom," Nala said, addressing the gathered crowd of humans, Volani, and even some reformed Kreks. "The humans offer protection and strength. Together, we will ensure that no species suffers as we suffered." The alliance represented something new in galactic politics, a partnership between the galaxy's most peaceful species and its most dangerous one. The Volani would provide scientific innovation and cultural guidance. Humanity would provide the military force to protect those who could not protect themselves. As the ceremony concluded, Admiral Kim received another priority message. 3 more systems were under attack. Pirates, slavers, and aggressive empires were threatening peaceful civilizations. "Admiral," Captain Park So-jin said, "the Soul's Fury is ready for departure." Kim nodded. The galaxy was a dangerous place filled with predators who preyed on the weak. For too long, bureaucracy and politics had prevented anyone from stopping them. But humanity had answered one call for help, and that had changed everything. They had shown that strength could be used for protection instead of exploitation. They had proven that the galaxy's most dangerous species could also be its most compassionate. "All ships prepare for departure," Kim ordered. "We have people to save." The human fleet left Volani space as heroes, but they carried with them something more important than glory. They carried hope, the knowledge that somewhere in the galaxy, someone was listening for calls for help. And when those calls came, humanity would answer, because that's what people do for each other. War Commander Thex, now serving as a construction supervisor on a rebuilt Volani world, watched the human ships depart. He had learned something during his captivity that no military academy had taught him. True strength wasn't about conquest or domination. True strength was about standing between the innocent and those who would harm them, regardless of the odds. The humans had shown the galaxy a new way forward, not through fear or submission, but through protection and partnership. As the last human ship disappeared into hyperspace, Thex made a decision that would have shocked his former self. He submitted an application to join the Volani Reconstruction Corps. After all, he had learned from the best teachers in the galaxy. He had learned from Deathworlders.